Koca Mustafa Pasha Mosque is a former Eastern Orthodox church converted into a mosque by the Ottomans, located in Istanbul, Turkey. The church, as the adjoining monastery, was dedicated to Saint Andrew of Crete, and was named Saint Andrew in Chryse or by the judgment. Although heavily transformed during both the Byzantine and the Ottoman eras, it is one among the few churches in Istanbul still extant, whose foundation goes back to the 6th century. Location: the building lies in the Istanbul district of Fatih, in the neighborhood of Koca Mustafa Pasha, along Koca Mustafa Pasha Caddesi. It is placed inside the walled city, and not far from the Church of St. John of Strudian, on the slopes of the 7th hill of Constantinople near the Sea of Marmara. History: Byzantine period. At the beginning of the 5th century, Princess Arcadia, sister of Emperor Theodosius II, ordered the construction, near the Gate of Saturninus, of a monastery dedicated to St. Andrew. The building, named also Rhodophilion, lay about 600 meters west of the gate. The monastery was later converted into a nunnery, mentioned for the first time in 792. The monastery of St. Andrew was known under the appellation, by the judgment, after the place where it lay, named the judgment. St. Andrew of Crete, a martyr of the fight against Byzantine iconoclasm, killed on 20 November 766 in the Forum Bovis because of his opposition to the iconoclastic policies of Emperor Constantine V, was buried there. Due to his popularity after the final triumph of orthodoxy, the dedication of the church changed from St. Andrew the Apostle to him. During the second half of the 9th century, Emperor Basil I wholly rebuilt the church, which possibly had been damaged during the iconoclastic fights. Around 1284, Princess Theodora Raulina, niece of Michael VIII Palaeologos and wife of Protovesturios John Raoul Petraliphes, rebuilt the monastery and the church, deserving the appellation of Second Caterisso. She spent the last 15 years of her life in the monastery, and was buried there. Neglected during the Latin occupation of Constantinople. 2 Russian pilgrims visiting Constantinople in 1350 and between 1425 and 1450 mention the church, affirming that St. Andrew was worshipped by many who were afflicted by sickness. At the beginning of the 15th century, the surrounding area of the monastery was covered with vineyards, confirming the decline of the city. Ottoman period. After the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople, the monastery, known by the Turks as Kizla Kilizizi, continued to be inhabited for a while. Between 1486 and 1491, Kapasabasi Koca Mustafa Pasha, executed in 1512, converted the church into a mosque. Some years later, the building of the monastery was endowed by his son-in-law, Seih Çelebi Efendi, as tekka for the dervishes of the Halvete order. The dervishes were led at that time by the Sufi master Sunbul Efendi. His turb, a popular destination for Muslim pilgrims, lies next to the mosque, which is also named after him. At the beginning of the 16th century, there were quarrels between Sultan Selim I and Seih Çelebi, since the Sultan wanted to pull down part of the monastery to build the Topkapi Palace. He died in 1559, and his wife Safiye Hatchin were both buried in a turb in the yard of the mosque, near the turb of Mustafa Pasha. Several Halvete sheikhs were buried in the cemetery behind the mosque. Also in this period was born the tradition related to a chain hung to a cypress tree. The cypress is since long dead but still stands, together with the chain, inside a small round building in the yard of the mosque. The chain was swung between 2 people who were affirming contradictory statements, and the chain was said to hit the one who was telling the truth. This is one among many surviving folk tales concerning the mosque, all with Byzantine roots. They testify the merge between Ottoman and Greek popular culture and beliefs. At the beginning of 17th century, Deftedarek Mekzizadar met Parsalet Builder Medres, the gates of the complex, as Abuya, and a Mekteb. About 1 century later Hekambasi Giridli Nuh Effendi closed the Tekka and enlarged the Medres. While in 1737 Kisla Agasi Hasiba Sayaga erected in the yard a column-shaped fountain. The earthquake of 1766 destroyed the dome of the building. It was rebuilt in 1768. During the 19th century, Mahmud II rebuilt the porch. In 1847 to 1848, Sultan Abdumside I let the wall which encircles the complex be rebuilt. Some years later 2 fountains were erected in the yard of the mosque. Finally, in 1953, the building was restored again. The tradition to light up the minaret of the mosques on the eve of the anniversary of the birth of Prophet Muhammad was born in the Koca Mustafa Mosque. Architecture. The building was originally of the ambulatory type, and is oriented in east-northeast, west-southwest direction. It has a central dome and of 3 apses, placed of the east side. An easternarthex and exonarthex are placed in the west side. On the other 3 sides the dome was originally surrounded by arcades surmounted by barrel vaults. During the Ottoman period the building underwent important alterations. The entrance is on the north side, where the Ottomans built an arcade covered by 5 domes. After the earthquake of 1766, the central dome was rebuilt. It is circular inside, octagonal outside, and rests on a high drum pierced by 8 windows. On the north and south sides of the main dome, 2 half-domes were added during the Ottoman period. They are also both pierced by 3 large windows, which outside look like dormers. All the domes rest on arches. The eastern arch sustaining the main dome is prolonged into a barrel vault bema, flanked by niches which originally led to the prothesis and diaconicon. Only the diaconicon, covered with a cross-groined vault, survives. The west arch sustaining the dome is filled in with a triple arcade resting on 2 marble columns topped by cubic capitals. The inner narthex is divided into 3 bays. The north one is covered with an Ottoman dome. The central one is surmounted by a barrel vault, while the south one is surmounted by a cross-groined vault. The last 2 are Byzantine. The outer narthex is divided into 5 bays, the 3 central corresponding with those of the inner narthex. The central bay is covered by a central source, a dome resting on pendentives. It is separated by the 2 intermediate bays by columns set against pilasters. These 2 bays are covered with groined vaults put on Ionic capitals, which resemble those used in the Church of Saints Sergius and Bacchus. The 2 external bays are surmounted by central saucer domes and are separated from the others by projecting pilasters. The exterior is clearly Ottoman. It is made with finely dressed and polished stone, with no tiles, and has a stone moulded cornice. Above the drum of the half-domes there is a stone moulded cornice. The square base of the drum and the dome itself are faced with polished stone alternating with courses of 3 bricks set in a thick bed of mortar. Also the dome is crowned with a stone moulded cornice. The roof is covered with lead. The Byzantine monastery has disappeared completely, except for an underground cistern which lies southeast of the mosque. A beautiful Byzantine carved door frame, possibly of the 6th century, belonging to the Medres, has been brought to the Istanbul Archaeology Museum. Despite its architectural significance, the building has never undergone a systematic study.